Once upon a time there was a 12-year-old kid with a tail living in the woods all by himself, whose encounter with a funny-haired, spoiled 16-year-old girl would change his life for good. But this is not his story. Then, once upon another time, there was a guy named Walter who created a mouse wearing a black mask, who made his theatrical debut in November 1928, changing his life for good. But this is not his story either. This is the story of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, an older character created by this Walter guy, whom Universal Studios grabbed in 1928 and wanted him to become the protagonist of their cartoons. Thus, producer Charles Mintz hired struggling artists like Hugh Harman, Rudolph Ising, Paul Smith, Max Maxwell, Roland Hamilton and Isidore Freeling. But the outcome wasn't particularly successful, so in 1929 Universal decided to produce the Oswald series in-house, in Walter Land Studios, thus leaving Mintz animation staff out of work. End of the story. What now? What happens next? The unemployed animators led by Harman and Ising had to do something. And they did. They decided to produce their own cartoons, featuring a new character Harman and Ising created while working at Disney. His name is Bosko and their pilot episode title is Bosko the Talking Kid, released on May 29, 1929, but never got to see the lights of theaters, and the audience got to realize its existence only 2000, 71 years later. This short is highly experimental, featuring Ising in the flesh drawing Bosko, who tries everything to annoy the cartoonist, like tap dancing, whistling, singing and playing the piano. While the short may have aged like milk, keep in mind it's highly experimental and quite innovative for its time, as a cartoon character gets to interact with a real-life person, and even breaks the fourth wall for the first time out of millions. Of course, this doesn't erase its flaw of looking too simplistic, but to Freeling's plea, he wasn't probably that confident of his skills eons prior to its explosion. Spoiler alert, this experimental short showcases one of the main goals of the upcoming Harman Ising era, the usage of music, which would also result in suffocating and morbid setups. Nevertheless, Bosko the Talking Kid caught the attention of a man in particular, who took advantage of his connections with Warner Brothers Pictures to help the duo supply a new series featuring Bosko. His name was Leon Schlesinger. It seems like that was the turning point for both Harman and Ising after being ignored by Paramount and Universal. At long last they could create a series out of Bosko, but how are they going to call it? Well, the easiest solution would be combining their last names, thus creating Harman Ising Studios. It doesn't even sound that bad, but they preferred being inspired by silly symphonies from that other studio, because again, music represents the core of the Kansas City duo's entertainment. Therefore, no wonder their series should be titled Looney Tunes. And it's probably better that way, as 1930 marks the beginning of one of the most, if not the most, influential periods in the history of animation. This is the pilot episode of the Looney Tunes and Merrie Melodies filmography dissection.